Good morning, students. Today we will learn the second part of History, Chapter 1, Rise of Nationalism in Europe. In the previous class, we learned about the French Revolution and the idea of nation. Today we will discuss about the making of nationalism in Europe. After the French Revolution has impacted, we had seen that how the people had changed their attitude towards the Napoleon's rule. During the mid-18th century, there was no nation states in Europe. Then what they had? How is the concept of nationalism spread in Europe? What are the factors that led to the spread of nationalism in Europe? Let us find out what actually happened in Europe. Europe can be broadly classified into two, Eastern and Central Europe. After categorizing Eastern and Central Europe, there are autocratic monarchies ruled there. The autocratic monarchies came from the arbitrary rule of the family hierarchy. They are not in favor of the interest of the people. So, the Eastern and the Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies within the territories of which lived diverse people. They don't have any collective identity. It means they do not follow any common language, common culture, or common pattern of living or anything. They spoke different language and belonged to different ethnic groups. They are controlled by a large and mighty powerful emperor. So that is the only factor binding them together. Here we can see an example of Austria and Hungary. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary, for example, was a patchwork of many different regions and people. It means there is only one thing in common between Austria and Hungary, that is about their ruler. Austria and Hungary was under the control of the Habsburg Empire. So apart from that, everything is different in Austria and Hungary. It means Austria and Hungary both had a different set of culture, different pattern, different language, different identity, and so on. There is only one thing that bond them together, that is they are controlled by the Habsburg family. It included the Alpine regions, the Tyrol, the Austria and the Sudetenland, as well as the Bohemia, where the aristocracy was predominantly German-speaking. And it also included the Italian-speaking regions like Lombardia and Venetia. And in Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, while the other half spoke a variety of dialects. In Galicia, the aristocracy spoke the Polish language. Besides these groups, there are also lived within the boundary of empire a mass of subject peasant peoples like Bohemians, Slovaks to the northern side, Slovens in Carniola, Croats in the south, and the Romans to the east in Transylvania. The only tie binding these diverse groups together was a common allegiance to the emperor. So from this we can understand that here everything is different to them. Their language here, everywhere, the language which they are speaking is different. They have a different culture, different identity, so a different pattern. So there is nothing common between the different countries. So there is only one thing that is common is about the ruler. So the only common thing binding them was a common emperor. So same taxation, same rules which are made by the emperor, not by the people for themselves. They are forced to follow the rules and regulations which are made by the emperor. These all things made them to be bound together and to think against a common enemy, that is their monarch. And later they decided to fight against the ruler. So this was the base or the foundation for the growth of nationalism. The seed of nationalism has been incepted because of the extreme powers which had been enforced to them by the monarchies. All these changed the mindset of the people. The next slide is explaining about the different categories of people who lived in Europe. The major role played by the aristocracy and by the middle class. Let us first find out about the aristocratic people. The aristocratic people were the rich and the wealthier people. In aristocracy, people had a common way of life. They had their own estates and they all spoke French language. They also had marriage bonds within their own group. Thus, they maintained their own aristocracy. The next is about the middle class. They were the working class population, specifically the industrialist, businessman, and all the other professionals. And finally, the third group is the peasants. The peasants were the small farmers. The majority of the population was made up of the peasantry. The aristocratic people are not very large in number, but they are influential in the society because they are very rich people and they own acres of land. They own thousands of acres of land. So that is why they hold a large group of peasants for bonded labor. They act as a feudal law. And these peasants, they were assigned to cultivate in the vast land holdings of the landlord, and they will get a very nominal amount as their salary. These all made the people to think against the aristocratic group. In the next slide, it is explaining about the emergence of the middle class. Impact of the Industrial Revolution and the rise of the middle class. So when it comes to the development of middle classes, the role of Industrial Revolution cannot be neglected. The process of development of common man started only with the Industrial Revolution. The rapid changes which came out in the Industrial Revolution revealed the fact that a common man also can do work in industries irrespective of their normal work, what they were doing, like the work in the agricultural field, and irrespective of the climatic condition. They can work for a specific period of time and they can earn a fixed amount as salary, and thereby they can maintain a decent standard of living. So initially people trade only with their own country or else within the country. But the time passed on, people started to trade with other countries. In western and central parts of Europe, the growth of industrial production and trade results in the growth of towns and the emergence of the commercial classes. So the Industrial Revolution played a crucial role in the emergence of the commercial classes. And the middle class people, they were educated and liberal minded people. And because of their education, what they gained, so the middle class people, they got the courage to raise their voice against the atrocities made by the monarchy. They wanted to remove the aristocratic privileges. So they raised their voice against the aristocratic group. So this development also favored for the rise of nationalism. It means industries, the industrial revolution helped in the that is also one of the major reason that favored for the rise of nationalism. The next heading is explaining about liberal nationalism. Liber. Liber is a Latin word which means free. So liberalism talks about freedom of individual and equality of all before law. It stood as an end of autocracy and clerical privileges and stressed unstrained freedom of thought, religion, speech, press, and politics. And liberal nationalism, it mainly emphasized the concept of government by consent, or is the concept of government by the people. Then universal suffrage in France. Initially, only property owned man had the right to vote. Under Jacobins, the right was given to all adult males. Under Napoleon, again, rights were limited and reduced women to the status of minor. Later, opposition movements began by the women and the non-propertied men demanding equal rights. Liberalism stood for freedom of market and abolition of state-imposed restrictions on movement of goods and capitals under economic sphere. Demand for emerging middle class increased. We learned about Napoleon and his administrative measures in his region. As per the administrative measures of Napoleon in his territories, each region having its own system of weights and measures and currencies, which involved time consuming in calculation. Varied currencies and weights and measures were obstacles to economic growth. So, Solveren was formed. In 1834, a customs union or Solveren was formed. And it was started by Prussia and joined by most of the German states, and that helped in the creation of a unified economic territory, allowing the unhindered movement of goods. The results of the Solveren were the tariff barriers. The union abolished, removed the tariff barriers or is the trade barriers, and reduced the number of currencies from more than 30 to 2. So the idea was to bond economically and stimulate internal productivity. By this, we concluded the second part of History, Chapter 1, Rise of Nationalism in Europe. Now let's have a quick recap of today's class. Today we learned about the making of nationalism in Europe. We learned that Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, and till the middle of the 18th century in Europe, there were no nation states. And then we learned about the aristocracy and the new middle class. The aristocracy was the dominant class in Europe at that time. The majority of the population was made of the peasantry. Industrialization began in England in the second half of the 18th century. New social groups came into being, a working class population and the middle class made up of industrialists, businessmen, and different professionals. Then we learned about the liberal nationalism. The word liber, it is derived from a Latin word which means free. The right to vote and to get elected was granted exclusively to property-owned men. Men without property and all women were excluded from the political rights. And finally, we learned about the Solvereign. In 1834, the Solvereign means or else a customs union was formed by the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. The Solvereign Union abolished the tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. By this, we covered the second part of History, Chapter 1, Nationalism in Europe. Thank you, students. Have a good day ahead.